Good evening, everyone. This is my second live of August. I'm sorry I did not go live last Thursday, but we're still going to continue. So I've consolidated some things. So today's topic is all going to be about working with your lender and refinancing frequently asked questions. I'm working on a video about refinancing that should come out next week. But tonight, I want to answer frequently asked questions and working with your lender questions. That's what we're going to focus on tonight. Thank you for joining me, everybody that's already here. I appreciate it. L. Brown is in the house. Thank you. Um, Sorry, I'm not going to pronounce your name right, but the Buffalo, I don't know. Hello. Thank you for joining. I appreciate it. Jamaican Black Queen is in the house. Hi, how are you? All right, so let's get started. I have a few slides while everybody's getting in, but as soon as you arrive, if you have a question, go ahead and put it in the chat so you'll have priority as far as me answering the question. But tonight I have some slides that I want to go over first, and then we'll get into the question and answer, and we'll be here till 8 o'clock. So it's a full hour. All right, so the first thing I wanted to talk about was mortgage rates. So mortgage rates today from Mortgage News Daily, the FHA rate is 6.12 and the conventional rate is 6.58. So for some people that that bought homes when rates were at the peak 8%, high 7%, then it might make sense right now for you to refinance. I have a video on my channel and the moderator is going to put it in the chat, the 6 times when it makes sense to refinance. For some of you, it may make sense to refinance now. However, you do know, because we've talked about it, that refinancing typically is not free. So you don't want to have to refinance back to back, paying those closing costs or rolling those closing costs into your loan. So if you know that interest rates are going to be, steadily declining, it may be a good idea to kind of wait, watch how rates are going, and then refinance when it makes sense. So you're not refinancing back to back. So on August 5th, and I actually called my clients when this happened because some of them they're buying homes right now, and a lot of them didn't have their rate locked. So on August 5th, FHA rates went down to 5.75. So they went down significantly because before they were in like the low sixes. And this is why it was in reaction to the jobs report. So on August 2nd, which was Friday, the unemployment rate jumped to a 3-year high of 4.3%. And that scared, the stock market went down. A lot of things happened that day in reaction to that unemployment rate, because when businesses start laying off people, it's because they're not making enough money, not enough money's coming in, and it could lead to a recession. So the reaction was, lower interest rates. So interest rates did get lowered, but then the next week there was some positive financial news and rates went back up. So we might have some back and forth for a little while until things, even out. So for a lot of people, it might have made sense if they jumped on it on Monday that they could have locked their rate to that 5.75, depending on lender. These are all average rates. So you want to be just mindful of what's happening in the economy right now, because the same way that interest rates were increased, every time the Fed met, they're going to be probably, not saying for sure, little by little decrease as well. All right, so I'm going to go over my slides now. Thank you for putting in your questions. All right, I want to go over this. Let me put this banner away. All right, so these are the things you're looking at every month. So one is the Fed meetings. So the Fed doesn't meet every month, but their next meeting, they have their July meeting. The next meeting is September, and this is when they can announce that they're cutting rates. September 17th, 18th. 18th is generally when they do the press conference. November 6th and 7th. 7th is usually when they do the press conference, and then December 17th and 18th. So they could, on those 3 meetings, drop interest rates each time. Not for sure, because they'll be looking at things like the job report. What's the unemployment rate? They'll be looking at the CPI, the consumer price index. how much is inflation going up each month. And these reports come out monthly, and it kind of makes their decision or helps them make that decision as to what they're going to do with rates. I doubt they're going to increase rates anymore, but they may either leave them steady, like no change, or they may decrease them. And then retail sales. Are people still spending money? So the retail sales number came out today and it was good. So people are still spending money. Consumers and our economy is largely consumer driven, and they were still spending money. So these are the things you want to look out for if you're in the market right now. All right, I only have 4 slides and I'll take your questions. Now, working with your lender. These 4 things I want you to be knowledgeable about if you're working with your lender. So one is the 3-day rule for a loan estimate. By law, your lender is supposed to give you a loan estimate within 3 days. Now, of you doing your loan application. Now, through my research and asking lenders, because sometimes it's hard, they don't automatically, they're supposed to give you a loan estimate after 3 days after your application. But a lot of people don't get this. And so I asked a few lenders, if by law, right, you have to give them a loan estimate, why are they not getting it? And this is what I was able to figure out. One is a lot of lenders don't consider your loan application complete until you have an address or you have a contract. Okay. So that's how they're kind of getting away with not giving you a loan estimate within those 3 days. But as soon as you go under contract, you give them that address, then they generate you a loan estimate because they know they have to do it by law. So you have to ask, and they'll say it won't be an official loan estimate. Some lenders call it a loan worksheet, but they can still generate you an estimate. And this is how you give them an address. Just look up on Zillow in the neighborhood that you're thinking about living in or in a price point that you're thinking about. And then they can generate you a general loan estimate. So I do not 100% do not want you to be under contract and seeing your monthly payment for the first time, to be under contract and seeing your fees for the first time. Because I have so many first-time home buyers that will say, oh, I'm under contract. I didn't know it was going to be that much. I didn't know I was going to be paying that. They're surprised. You have to get that loan estimate. It'll be an unofficial loan estimate, but you need to get that at time of pre-approval. Please do that. And then locking your rate. So this is what we were talking about. When I was calling my clients, telling them to talk to their lenders, rates are dropping, that sort of thing. Your rate is floating meaning it changes with the market, just the way that Mortgage News Daily comes out with the more interest rates every day. Your rate is not set until you lock it and your lender locks it for you. So you have to have that conversation with the lender up front. How do I go about locking my rate with you? What happens if I lock it today at 6.5%, and then by the time I build my house or by the time I close, rates have gone down, a half of a point or so? How can I, take advantage of that lower interest rate? You want to have those conversations up front. I like this website. It's called the Mortgage Reports, because every day they kind of give their recommendation as to when you should lock your rates. For example, they say, things might go awry, but for now, I'm hopeful that mortgage rates will glide gently lower amid peaks and troughs. I'm going to say probably saying that wrong, but peaks and valleys. Can we say that? For the rest of the year and through 2025. So they're saying that they may go up, they may go down, but slowly but surely they'll probably glide down. So they're saying lock if closing in 7 days, lock if closing in 15 days. However, they say to float, this is their recommendation, float if closing in 30 days, float if closing in 45 days, float if closing in 60 days. So, and they kind of explain based on some of that economic data why they're telling you to do that. So that's a site to look at and in conversation with your lender so you know when to lock your rate. Number 3, working with your lender, you need to understand how points work. I have a points video on my channel, and I kind of try to explain it the best I can, right? Because sometimes it's a little bit complicated as to how points work. But points are an amount that you pay or you can pay, right, to lower your interest rate. If you want to pay points, so say interest rates are 7%, and you want a 6.5%, the lender can say, well, you can pay a point and a half to get that interest rate lower. Basically, you're paying the interest up front to get a lower rate. And sometimes it makes sense, sometimes it doesn't. It depends on your break-even point. But I have a slide for this as well. Let's kind of answer the last two. This is an example of the rate of your interest rate at 5.625. But the APR, because that's your rate plus fees. Somebody asked me this 2 Thursdays ago, and I kind of explained it, but it was kind of on the top of my head. But there's always two rates you're being quoted. You're being quoted your interest rate, and then you're being quoted the APR, the annual percentage rate. And that is your interest rate with fees attached to it. That's why the APR is always higher than the rate. The bigger difference between these two numbers, the more fees you're paying. And this loan, I just copied this from Bankrate. This loan it has 1.85 in points, and they're charging you for those points. So for you to get this 5.65%, you're paying 1.85% in points, and that's going to cost you $7,844, and that's up front. That's what your closing costs. So when you're getting those loan estimates, they should be breaking down. They'll have it in black and white if you're paying any points. If you don't want to pay any points, ask them for the par rate, PAR, par rate. That is the rate with no points, because sometimes automatically lenders will quote you a rate that automatically comes with points. So you want to make sure you're quoting that par rate. Watch that video because it kind of explains, what the par rate is and all of that. But that's something that I want you to understand. It's not super difficult. And especially if you're looking at multiple loan estimates, you'll be able to compare them. But you have to go in knowing what points are. If not, don't count on your lender to explain it to you, right? If you tell them you want a low interest rate, they'll just add those points. And a lot of them will say, well, just get some, your seller to pay closing costs. And, sometimes that's not always the case. Some sellers are not going to be willing to do that. So just be mindful of how points work. And then lastly, it was just interest rate versus APR. The APR is interest rate plus fees. So those two numbers are going to be different. The farther they are apart, probably the more fees you're paying. All right, I hope that was helpful. Now we're going to make sure I didn't miss anything. Now we're going to get into the questions for tonight. All right, let me move this. All right, we're going to get into questions. Again, thank you for joining me. If you have, I'm going to try to focus as much as possible on working with your lender and refinance questions. I do have my moderator, so she'll choose what questions I'm going to answer. All right, Miss Demeanor, first-time home buyer. Is it better to go FHA or conventional? Credit score is great. What other programs can help me with down payment in South Carolina? All right, Miss Demeanor. So it really depends. Okay. It depends on a lot of different things, how much you want to put down, but FHA loans have become more affordable than they were in the past. Like the mortgage insurance you pay with FHA is generally less because the percentage changed because, after interest rates went up, the government lowered the mortgage insurance on FHA. So it's not as, it's not as expensive as it used to be. Also, FHA mortgage rates are probably about 0.5% lower than conventional mortgage rates. So where automatically people who, have better credit maybe, or that were putting down more money, they would say it'd be more advantageous for you to do conventional. That may not be the case anymore. So you should quote with both. You should quote conventional and you should quote FHA, and be mindful that conventional also has low down payment options. You can do 100% financing, no down payment conventional. You also can do a 3% down conventional, and that's lower than FHA's 3.5%. And the mortgage insurance is a little bit lower with that conventional loan. So you should be quoting both. You should be quoting FHA and you should be quoting conventional. The main difference you're going to find is mortgage insurance. So you have to kind of do the math because FHA the mortgage insurance, you're going to pay that for the life of the loan. However, it may not be that much when you're getting a higher interest rate with conventional, right? With conventional, you do have the option of either putting 20% down and getting rid of mortgage insurance, or when you have enough equity through payments and the home value just going up in value, the house going up in value, as soon as you hit that 20%, you can get rid of that mortgage insurance. But again, if the mortgage insurance for FHA is not that much and the interest rate is significantly lower, it may not be that much better for you to do conventional. So my answer is do both. You need to do a conventional loan estimate and you need to do a FHA loan estimate. And then what other programs can help me? So I just want to say that FHA is not a program, it's a mortgage. So there are 4 mortgages: conventional, FHA, VA, and USDA. So FHA is not a program, but if you are looking for down payment assistance, then I have a video on my live. If you go to my live tab, I did a video all about down payment assistance, probably in February, and I have a link that'll tell you all of the down payment assistance programs in your state. I don't know if the moderator can help us find that really quickly, but if not, that's where it is. Thank you so much. Reread. How can I get my monthly payment down from $2,000 for a new build? All right, let's try to take this, I guess, piece by piece. So you're buying my monthly payment down from $2,000. So a lot of times, unless you put down 20%, you're probably escrowing your payments, right? So if you're paying multiple things in a payment, more than likely, you're paying principal, interest, taxes, insurance, and sometimes mortgage insurance in your payment. So your payment could be 5 things. So I'm going to assume that this $2,000 payment includes those 5 things: principal, interest, taxes, insurance, and mortgage insurance. And I don't know if you're FHA or conventional, so I'm going to try to go piece by piece. There's really nothing you can do about the principal and interest part of your payment unless you're going to refinance your loan. So again, if you have a 7% interest rate, you could refinance now probably to a low 6, or you can wait as rates go down and, maybe into the 5s or so and refinance. That will lower your principal and interest payment. For the taxes, you can look for any kind of tax exemptions in your state. Make sure that you are getting any exemptions. There are exemptions for that being your primary residence. There are exemptions for disability. There are exemptions for age, like being a senior. So those are some things you can get exempt or a lower amounts, right, for your taxes. For your insurance, I just did this recently. I was paying like $3,000 a year for insurance. I requoted it. Now I'm paying $2,000 a year. So that was a significant savings by requoting my homeowner's insurance. So you can be doing that to save you money on your insurance. And there's really not much you can do for mortgage insurance unless you're conventional. If you're conventional and you have 20% equity, you can call your mortgage insurance company and tell them you want to get rid of your mortgage insurance for a conventional loan. They'll send an appraiser out. You have to kind of, do the math or have your agent help you, the person that sold you the house, to see if you have 20% equity or you think you have 20% equity, because you're going to have to pay for that appraiser to come out. So they'll send an appraiser out to determine if you have 20% equity in the home, and then you could drop your mortgage insurance. When I bought my first house, I did conventional, and I was able to get rid of my mortgage insurance after about 3 years because it was new construction. And so home values were going up as they sold more and more of the homes. And I paid my mortgage down little by little. So it took me about 3 years to get rid of my conventional private mortgage insurance. I hope that was helpful. Thank you for that question. I think I'm ready for the next question. If you have some time, please like and subscribe if you're not already. Hi, Annette. I love your nails and, your ring. All right. We're in the middle of purchasing and we have a 6.375 rate. I was wondering, when will they give us a closing expectation date? The inspection is done. The appraisal is done. The title stuff. All right. So, and you guys, it'd be helpful if I knew if you were doing new construction or resale. So I'll do both for this because I don't know. So if you're doing new construction, sometimes the closing date is to be determined because they have a building timeline that sometimes is accurate and sometimes is not. So as you get closer, some builders will give you an actual date once they put the cabinets in. I don't know why cabinets are like the thing, but a lot of times they'll give you a closing date once the cabinets are in the house. It'll be more accurate as when they know their completion time is near. But if it's a resale, then it should be in your contract. So that's how you would know when your closing date is. I think that's what we're talking about. So if you're building, you need to ask the builder, when do they typically give you a closing date? And a lot of builders will tell you generally when the cabinets go in, that's when we'll give you an official closing date. If it's resale, it should be part of your contract. It's already on your contract as to when the closing date is. All right, good question. All right, reread, you there again. Let's see. The lender wants a $12,000 down payment or a $0 down payment. My monthly payment is still $2,000 for a $300,000 home. Why? I mean, that's just the math. So, like, I don't know all your numbers. I don't know your interest rate. So I'm not going to answer a whole bunch of these questions because number one, you should have a loan estimate. And it should not be exactly the same if you're doing no down payment and if you're doing a $12,000 down payment. There's no way because the loan balance is different. So you should have two loan estimates. One is the $0 down payment and the other is the $12,000 down payment. Because if the house is $300,000, with the $0 down, you're borrowing $300,000. With the other loan, you're borrowing, and I hate when I do math live, you're borrowing $288,000, right? Because you're putting $12,000 down. If the interest rates are the same, then one should be less expensive than the other. Maybe not significantly, but one should be less expensive. A lot of times when you're doing $0 down payment loans, then the interest rate is higher with no money down loans. But sometimes they are, like Navy Federal has a popular no money down loan that is no money down. The interest rate is going to be higher, but there's also no private mortgage insurance with their loans. So again, you're going to look at both loan estimates and figure out which one would make more sense for me. Do I want to do the 0% down and have a higher interest rate, no PMI, and keep $12,000 in my pocket? Or do I want to, put the $12,000 down and have a lower interest rate? It's math for the most part, math and opportunity costs. Because some people just prefer, maybe they don't have an emergency fund and they don't want to, put that $12,000 out. So look at both of those things, but you should have two loan estimates and you should compare line by line, as to which one would work best for you. And then slow your lender down, right? Because a lot of times lenders, they're working with a lot of people. And sometimes they don't slow down for first-time home buyers. You can say, hey, let's get on a call or a Zoom. I want to review both of these loan estimates with you so you can explain them to me. And so, you can ask me, you'll have an opportunity to ask them any questions about both loans. But that's what I would do. Often a lot of agents don't like to get in between you and your lender. They're like, I'm the agent. I help you find the house. And the lender's your lender. They help with your financing and they try to stay in their lanes. This is how I kind of cross over into the lender. I'll say, let's all get on a call together. Let's all get on a Zoom together if you're going to allow your agent to do that. Because as an agent, I've closed so many of these. I know the questions to ask. A lot of times first-time home buyers don't know the questions to ask. So they, just keep on going. So if we're all on a call together, I can ask a question on their behalf, or I can talk them through it to say, well, you should be asking them this. You should be asking them that. So not that I'm taking over for the lender, but I'm kind of coaching you as to what you should be asking your lender. All right, good question. Or buy my my masterclass. I tell you the questions to ask. All right, thank you for that question. Debbie, how are you? Is it okay to bid under the asking price? Maybe. All right. So say, for example, Debbie, this house has been on the market for say the average days on the market in your area is 12 days. And this house has been on the market for 60 days. Would I come in at full price? Probably not, right? Because they're already, sitting on the market. Or if there's no competition, you're the only offer. There's a lot of factors that come into should you go under the asking price. It's also, are they overpriced? Your agent can pull the comp. So say there's a subdivision and this house is $500,000, but every other house in the subdivision has sold for under $450,000. Then you're like, okay, why are they, there should be a question. Why do they think their house is worth $500,000? Are they just overpricing it? Do they have something that's worth $50,000 in this house? Because those are the kinds of things that you want to think about prior to putting in your offer. But at the same time, if this person's saying they want $500,000 for their house, and because a lot of first-time buyers are very arbitrary with their offer. I want to pay $425,000. If their house is worth $500,000, why would they take $425,000, right? So you have to have some reasons and think through, why are you offering what you're offering? Is it the condition of the home? Is it the comps in the area? Is it how long it's been on the market? Is it a combination of those things? There has to be a reason typically that a seller would sell their house below what they think it's worth. So you can, but you need to have a reason why you're doing it. Good question, Debbie. Y'all gonna get me with these names. All right, Miss H. I'm gonna say yes. All right, Shaheedah, can you speak to right of first refusal? I have my offer accepted, and I think I answered this question in my comments. And the seller put that as a contingency. I had to walk away from the deal. I honestly don't understand this question. I didn't understand it in the comments. It may be that this is state specific, because when I think of right of first refusal, is usually when somebody puts in an offer, like you're a buyer, you put in an offer and it's contingent on your house selling. And basically it's the seller accepts your offer with a kick out saying that if I get another offer without a contingency, you have, some time to, take away your contingency. The fact that you need to sell your house before you buy mine. That's what I'm thinking about, but I'm not sure. I can't speak about it, the right of first refusal, with a seller telling a buyer that they have the right of first refusal. So I would ask your agent that I'm assuming helped you put in this offer that you accepted, or is saying your offer was accepted. I would have them go over what that means for you, because you've asked that. I saw it in the comments when you asked it. I see it now. I don't fully understand it. It could be contract specific. It could be state specific. You need to ask your lender you need to ask your agent what that means. All right, good question. Dell News. Okay, average houses in beat down cities. What are beat down cities? All right, average houses in beat down cities are 800,000. Like, how can I afford that with an excellent job, 6 figures? All right, so when you are looking at home affordability, they look at your debt to income ratio as to whether or not you can afford the house. And for the sake of this live, I'm going to use 50%. Okay. So, and 50% is on the high side. Typically it's like 43%, but I'm not doing that math right now. So if you make $100,000 a year, no lender, or say you make, let me make it easier. You're making $10,000 a month. Okay. So that's $120,000 a year. You're making $10,000 a month. A lender is not going to let you borrow more than 50% of your monthly income. And that's your gross. So that's $6,000. Okay. You make $12,000 a month. They're not going to let you borrow or have debt, including your mortgage, of more than $6,000. But say you already have a car loan for $1,200. You have student loans for $2,000. You have, some other credit card debt for another $1,000. then that might mean you only have about $3,000 that you can put toward a mortgage payment. So that debt to income ratio that you have, if you have no debt, then they may allow you to borrow up to $6,000, half of the $12,000 you're making. But the more debt you have, you know, the more problems you're going to have buying a more expensive house, if that makes sense. So even though you are making good money, right? And six figures, depending on where you live, may not be, you know, the high six figures, low six figures. It really, that debt part, overall debt, does matter in the overall affordability. So two things. Number one, you could move out of the beat down cities. And I've talked about it for years, how my mom, I'm from the Bronx, y'all, and we moved to Atlanta when I was in middle school. And one of the reasons was because of home affordability. She couldn't afford a house in New York, so we moved to Atlanta. But so one thing, you can move out of the beat down city and move to a more affordable place if possible. But a lot of times you're making good money because you live in an expensive city. So salaries are higher, that sort of thing. But if you can't buy anything, you know, if you're not moving up financially, or you're not financially secure in that city, then it might be worth earning less and being able to do more somewhere else. So those are some of your choices. One is you can move. The other one is that you can make more money if you plan on buying a house in the future. Or you can, kind of stay where you are, but move to a more affordable part of town, possibly, or get your debt down so you can't, your debt to income ratio will be different. You always have options, but don't think just because you have to stay in the beat down city and pay $800,000. $800,000 in Atlanta is going to get you a really nice house. In a lot of places, it's going to get you a really nice house. All right, good question. Kimberly Allen, is it normal to buy down your rate 6 points? It seems like a lot. That does seem like a lot to me. I would say no, it's not normal. And you should probably get another quote. But for example, sometimes first-time home buyers will say, I don't want to pay more than $2,000. And they're like, okay, well, we need to get your interest rate down to 4%. And that's, 6 points. You never know why they're quoting you that 6 points. But in general, just for an average, out of the box loan estimate, it's not normal for you to see 6 points on there. But if the only way you can afford the home is by paying those points, and sometimes, right, lenders will think, well, the only way you can afford what you want is if you pay $20,000, $30,000 in points, and maybe you're getting those points paid from the lender because you don't have the money yourself to pay it up front. That could be, an option. But yeah, that does seem very high. So make sure you're getting at least 3 quotes as a matter of practice. But yeah, that seems high, Kimberly. All right, Patricia, we are still waiting on the lender. She had us fill out a portal online and add all bank accounts. My husband's letter of employment and work history, no other papers as of now, and that was last Tuesday. I guess you're asking a question, I'm not really sure, but when you're doing your online application, well, before you do your online application, you should ask, when will I hear back? How long will it take me to get approved after it's complete? A lot of times what I'm hearing from lenders is that people are doing the online applications, but not including all of the required information. So once your loan application is complete, you should ask your lender, how long will it take you to hear back? Typically, it's not long. It should be 3-5 days at the most from the time that you're complete with your loan application until you hear that you're pre-approved, you're not approved, and what you're approved for. So I would say, it was last Tuesday. That's been at least a week. I'll be calling, number one, do you have my completed loan application, or are you waiting for something? And then when should I receive my pre-approval or a call back from you to discuss my loan application? That's what I would be following up with, Patricia. All right, Miles, how are you? Are there any advantages going through a mortgage broker? All right, so this is an advantage that the mortgage brokers will tell you is that they can shop your loan around with a lot of different lenders. So that is one advantage. But I still tell you, if you're going to get the 3 quotes, one of them can be with a broker, but it shouldn't take the place of you quoting, because they're going to quote all of these people for you. You don't have to quote outside of the mortgage broker. I want you to still quote outside of the mortgage broker, because sometimes mortgage brokers, although they have access to hundreds of lenders, a lot of them use the same 1 or 2 lenders over and over and over again, and they become kind of complacent with those lenders. So I want you still to quote outside of the mortgage broker. That's 1 quote, and then you get another quote from whoever your agent suggests, and maybe like a credit union or online bank. Those will be your 3 quotes. But the advantage is typically that they can quote you with multiple people. Like that one person can quote you with multiple people. Good question. I'm going to go ahead and play my masterclass video. It's about a minute. So take some time, we're about halfway through. Please like, subscribe if you're not subscribed already, and we'll keep on going with the questions. But I'm gonna play my video. Get my masterclass, people. If you're out here in the market for a home, you're working with your agent, I want you to be just as educated. Like, I basically put my brain into this masterclass so you can know what I'm thinking at every process and what you should be asking, or every step. For guidance on the first-time homebuyer process, and are you tired of those first-time homebuyer guides that leave you with more questions than answers? You are not alone. Most of those guides provide basic definitions and explanations because they're afraid to dig deeper, because they don't want to give you too much information, because then you may question what they're doing, your inspector, your agent, your lender. But what if you could become a confident first-time homebuyer armed with knowledge and clarity? Introducing my first-time homebuyer masterclass and confidently closed digital handbook. Join thousands of successful homebuyers who have unlocked the secrets to a seamless home buying journey. My comprehensive resources include a step-by-step masterclass, exclusive confidently closed digital handbook and sample documents, and a bonus new construction mini masterclass and checklist. You're not going to find this organized like I've organized it anywhere else. Our 9-step video masterclass, explainer videos, and 40-page digital handbook will be your trusted companion through the home buying process. Don't let the complexities of home buying overwhelm you. Invest in your education today and make confident decisions from the start. Check my reviews and the thousands of people that I have helped confidently buy their first home. All right, let me get out of this. All right, so get my masterclass, everyone. All right, back to the questions. All right, Patricia. Also, Shaheedah, can you recommend a realtor in Atlanta, since I can't get you? I know you mentioned you only travel 5-7 miles. Email me, info@shaheedahhill.com. And what I said is, like, I live in Douglas County in Atlanta. So we're about 20-25 minutes outside of Atlanta. I'm really focusing a lot on YouTube. So I try not to go like an hour, like some of our suburbs are an hour away from where I live. So email me and we'll go from there. Okay. And I do have some recommendations. Thank you, Patricia. Okay, our contract, Annette has a clarification. Our contract has a closing date, but does that mean the lender has to close by that date? I guess that's what I meant. All right, so it's the guideline. Okay, so if your closing is going to be, say, August 29th, right? Your lender, you, the seller should all be working toward doing everything. So say they have to repair some things, or say that you have to submit some things to underwriting. Everybody's working toward the 29th. That should be when you close. But there are a few reasons why you might close. What if, you don't get through underwriting in time and you can't meet the 29th, or the seller's still working on some of the repairs and they can't meet the 29th. And that's when you may have to have an amendment to the contract to extend the closing date. But if there's nothing, if everything's moving smoothly, right? Everybody should be moving toward that 29th. You can, and your agent should be checking in with your lender periodically, right? To say, okay, are we on track? Is there anything else that you need from, the seller? Is there anything else you need from the buyer? But that closing date on the contract, everybody's moving toward that date, including the lender. The lender, knows when that closing date is. They should make sure you're in underwriting, out of underwriting by that date. Because if they don't, and a lot of times your agent, before they even submit an offer on your behalf, should be in communication with the lender and saying, hey, I'm about to put August 29th as a closing date on this contract. Can you close this loan by the 29th? And they should know, like, on average, how quickly are people getting out of underwriting? On average, how quickly are appraisals getting done? And they should be able to say, yes, no problem. That date is great. But yeah, that's the closing date. It usually doesn't change unless, right, something is happening with the loan and it gets delayed, or if something's happening with the seller and that gets delayed. But you and the seller have to agree to extend the closing date. There are a few exceptions to that. Sometimes in some states, if you're having title issues or something along those lines, then you might be able to do a unilateral, meaning only one person has to agree to extend the date. But ask your agent about that. But for the most part, everybody, including the lender, is moving toward that closing date on the contract. Good question. I'm going to answer this question from L really quickly. My class does not produce a completion certificate. It's not for like any down payment assistance programs or anything like that, but it's way better than any of those programs. So, but you're not going to get a certificate that you could use somewhere. If that's the question. It's more comprehensive than that. All right, Curtis, should I buy a renovated home or a fixer-upper? I'm putting in my first bid September 15th. It really depends on what your goal is, because some people, want to buy. If I'm buying a fixer-upper, I'm only buying it if I'm buying it below value, in the hopes that I fix it up and now I'm going to get more equity in this home if I fix it up, because I'm buying it so much below value. Even with my repairs, it's going to be worth a lot more. That's your advantage when you're buying a fixer-upper. Now, be mindful, however, if you're doing like an FHA loan, any kind of loan, USDA, FHA, and VA, it can't be that much of a fixer-upper unless you're doing a 203K loan. If your house is not what they consider to be move-in ready for the most part, aside from cosmetic, you might not be FHA approved. The home may not be FHA approved. If it needs anything significant, it may not be FHA to be repaired. You might not be able to get an FHA loan for it. So you want to make sure, a lot of times as first-time home buyers, depending on your loan, you may not get approved for that property if it needs a lot of repairs. For example, the air conditioning doesn't work. There's, any appliance, like your stove doesn't work, the air doesn't work, the heat doesn't work. You'll find that, some loans will say not FHA approved, or no, the home is not going to pass FHA because it needs certain repairs. So most of the first-time home buyers that I work with that want fixer-uppers, I tell them, and it really needs to be cosmetic fixes unless you're going to do a 203K loan, or otherwise FHA will not approve it because it's not move-in ready. The other one is renovated home. It's already done for you if you don't want to fix anything up, but you're going to pay those renovation prices. When an investor, typically, when an investor comes in and they renovate, they're expecting to get market value for that house. So it really depends on what you're trying to get out of your first home purchase. And congratulations on putting in your first bid. Question. All right, LM. Hi, Mrs. Hill. My grandmother just passed. I'm sorry to hear that. And her deed was transferred to me. Okay, the home needs a lot of work. Should I get a mortgage loan or an improvement loan? You can do either one. it really depends on, you need a quote for the work that you're going to do, but you can get a 203K loan on a house that you already own. I'm assuming the house is paid off. So you can look, work with a lender and say, can I do a 203K loan? That's an FHA loan. You can do a 203K. It's basically a renovation loan that allows you to renovate the house. You could use that kind of loan on this, I'm pretty sure. Or you can take out like a home equity loan and do the work that way. On the 203K loan, the interest rate is likely going to be lower than if you did it with a home equity loan or a line of credit, okay, or HELOC or a home equity loan, right? So I will look at those three ways, look at the different interest rates, your budget, like how much are you able to pay each month to pay the loan back? Because if it's already paid off, you're taking on debt to get it fixed up to where you want it to be. Are you getting it fixed up for you to live in that house? Or are you getting it fixed up for you to sell that house? What are you getting it fixed up to do? But you should, work with a lender. A credit union would be good for this one because you already have the property and they can give you some of those options. Not all credit unions do 203Ks though, so you may have to go outside of that. But if you're doing a home equity loan or a home equity line of credit, try with your local credit unions and see, what those interest rates are. And then you may have to go outside of that to do a 203K loan on the rehab. That's what I would, compare. So basically you need to get the quotes like I was talking about and look at each option and see which one makes the most sense for you. But I'm sorry I'm sorry for your loss for sure. All right, YB Flame. I'm looking to buy a forever home with my parents. I'm still new to the lending process of buying a home. Any suggestions? I don't have a stable job, but there would be 4 people providing income. All right, so number 1 is I have a video about buying a multi-generational home. So buying a home with your parents, that sort of thing. I want you to watch that video. But if you don't have stable income, you may not even be on the mortgage. Okay, so in general, the only people that are on a mortgage generally have 2 years, or that would qualify for a mortgage, have 2 years of employment history, 2 years of income. If they're self-employed, they have tax returns, that sort of thing. So I don't know if you would even, qualify? Like, would you qualify on your own for a home? Because say that you work part-time 6 months and you didn't have a job, you may not qualify. So in general, I would say that you need two years of income or employment history. It doesn't have to be with the same employer, but it should be, pretty stable, full-time work. 2 years for part-time work as well. They may count that for 2 years of consistent part-time work. So all of you need to get together and say, okay, what's everybody's credit? Because a lot of times they take the person with the lowest score. So they don't just take the person with the highest score. If you want your income to count and all 4 of you are doing it together, and somebody has an 800, somebody has a 760, 740, and a 650, they're going to qualify you off of the 650, the person with the lowest score. That's one thing to remember. And also the 2 years, remember that as well. And then all of you all can buy a home together, but you need to sit down with a lender and get pre-qualified. And I also would sit down with an attorney, a real estate attorney, to put a contract or some kind of agreement in place as to what happens when certain things happen. If one person wants to move, how does that happen? Because how this can be blown up and not work for families is, say you have 4 people and the person that is, has qualified, maybe there's one person making more money than the rest of you, that sort of thing, and they want to move out. And in order for them to move out and purchase something else, they have to get this mortgage out of their name, right? And they could force the sale. If they say that they want to move and they're the person that was, the primary, maybe 80% of the income was coming from this person, you all could be forced to sell that house if you can't agree on amongst yourselves, you have to go, that person would have to go to an attorney. You can't be forced to sell that property and, divide the proceeds, that sort of thing, if there's any equity in the house. So I want you guys to discuss all of those things ahead of time, because, on the surface, everything works, should work well. Y'all love each other. Everything works. But when somebody maybe gets married, they want to move out, you're not getting along, they want to move out, and the whole thing blows up, and you may not be able to afford it anymore. So it can work if everybody's on the same page, but I would do everything up front. Consult a lawyer up front, have a contract up front. Who's going to be on the deed? Because if all four of you on the deed, but everybody's not paying equal amounts, y'all all own the home, 25%, the four of you would own it 25%, but it could be that one person's paying 50% of the mortgage. So all of those things need to be discussed, and discuss it with a lawyer, because, so everybody's on the same page as to what will happen in different circumstances. And that lawyer will help you, think those things through. Again, say somebody in the family, they pass away, and, in some states, it'll just be left to the three people remaining. What if that person has a child and they want their 25% to go to their child? All of those things need to be discussed ahead of time. All right, good question. Miss Smile 30 days into a pre-approval, and the loan officer is leaving the company. She is saying my credit pull will expire soon, so I should follow her to the new company and get a new pre-approval. Is that smart to do? I mean, it really depends on if you want to stay with that person or not. You don't have to stay with that person, and it really doesn't matter that your pre-approval is expiring. It was going to expire anyway, even if she stayed with the company, more than likely, right? And what you'll have to do is they'll rerun your credit. It really depends on, how soon are you buying a house? Is, doing the whole pre-approval process with the new person going to delay your home purchase? Or is it not a big deal? Have you have a good relationship with this loan officer, and you're willing to follow her to her new company? So, I'd probably base it on relationship and the quote. Maybe the other company is not as good. So, I'm sure when this person leaves this company, you will be transferred to another loan officer at their former company. I would take it as another quote to say, okay, I know what I'm getting from this company. Now that you're going to this company, I'll do another pre-approval. You're supposed to do 3 anyway, right? Let's do another pre-approval with the, at the new place, and see what those numbers look like. So, I think it can be a smart thing to do, but you need to see numbers to know if it makes sense. Melody, I can't afford to do a major repair in my home. I want to sell my house. How should I go about the selling process? I've lived in the house for 2 years. Okay, so 2 years. What is the major repair? Please put the major repair in there really quickly, so I don't have to estimate what the major repair. I just want to know if the only reason you're selling is you can't afford the major repair, because there are probably other ways to pay for the major repair, because you're going to have to disclose this major repair, because you're aware of it. When you sell your house, you're going to have to disclose that major repair to the buyer. So, you're probably going to get less than what your house is worth to cover that repair anyway. So it might be, I don't know if she put it in here. I think I'm at the end, but if you have some time just to type in your major repair, that would be good. All right. So Melody, it's a sewage blockage. Okay. I see it now. Is it from a tree? Okay. All right. So it's a sewage blockage. And I've had people have this before, and they sold their house, but they had to go ahead and fix the sewage blockage to put their house on the market. Because in the example that I'm talking about, it was a tree root that had gotten to the sewage. And so those pipes had to be repaired. But who's going to buy a house where it has a sewage blockage, right? It makes your house less marketable because you have to talk about it. But so we fixed the sewage blockage. Then she sold her house for fair market value. So that made sense for her. She was able to get it at a good price. So that's one option, right? You could go ahead and pay for the repair, then sell your house because you just want to get out of that house. You also could, again, you don't want to have to do this because it's an emergency though, or something you have to do. You could take out a home equity loan or home equity line of credit to pay for the sewage blockage. I just want you to, kind of think about when you're selling your house, you're going to sell it probably at less than market value because you have this repair that the new buyer is going to be aware that they have to address. And a lot of, depending on like the price of your home, if it's kind of like a first time home buyer type of house, that's going to scare a lot of people off. They're not going to say, oh, I want to buy a house with a sewage blockage. They're going to do that, or they're going to see your disclosures, because in most states, you have to disclose things you're aware of. They're going to see that and be like, nope, sorry, because who has that money, right? But so those are some options. I would think, work with your real estate agent, kind of explain to them what's going on. And, if you do want to stay in the house and it's not, hopefully you've done a quote to see how much it costs. You could do a home equity loan or home equity line of credit to pay for this, get the sewage repaired. Or I think you're still going to have to get it done, or you could put it in the market and have to just disclose that the sewage needs to be done. You could offer the buyer at closing a credit to the plumber or whatever of their choice to get it fixed from your proceeds. So then they're not paying that money out of pocket. But again, if they're doing like an FHA loan and the appraiser that comes out, they're also going to like look at some of those things. They're going to flush the toilets, make sure there are no leaks. It may not pass FHA inspection. So you really need to talk to an agent and see, okay, what does it look like for us to put this house on the market with the current issue? And what are those options that we could, we can help, we can provide. Like if you don't have the cash right now, you could maybe provide a credit at closing, those sorts of things to incentivize the buyer to still want to buy your house. But in the what I'm going to say, in the example of my client that had that, problem, like she was so aggravated with the house, she was ready to sell it. But I told her, I said, you're going to have to fix this so we can get the most money for your house. So she went ahead and put the money out. I don't know if she put it on a credit card or what she did, but she went ahead and fixed it. And she was able to get, full market or above market value for her house. We probably were not going to be able to do that if we had to sell it, disclosing that it had that needed repair up front. All right. Thank you, Melody. All right. Miss Amara, the moderator, put up 6 times refinancing makes sense. Make sure you watch this video before. Make sure you watch that video before you think about refinancing, because one of the things, I didn't refinance my home during the pandemic. I had a 3.25%. I got some quotes, and the quotes were at 2.75, and that was taking my loan from a 30-year loan to a 15-year loan. So this is why I didn't refinance. Number one, I was only saving 0.5%, so it wasn't that significant. And I was going from a 30-year to a 15-year. I did think about it, right? But again, we had those fees as well. And at the time, I was going from teaching to being like a full-time YouTuber for the most part. My husband was like, we're not going to pretty much increase our mortgage payment if this YouTube thing doesn't work out. We're only saving 0.5%. We have the fee. So it didn't make sense, 0.5%, going from a 30 to a 15 for us. So you want to make sure that it makes sense for you. Usually it makes sense if you're getting at least 1 point. You're saving at least 1 point in interest. So going from 6 to 5, 6.5 to 5.5, because again, those fees will be in there as well. And I will post, when I come back to this video, in the description, I'm going to have because I don't have it right now, I don't think, saved. I'm going to have some links, and one of them is going to be a mortgage refinance calculator that I really like, because it helps you think about all of the fees and all of the things you should think about before you refinance. For example, if you've been paying on your loan for 5 years and you have 25 years left, most refinances, you're going to go back to a 30-year. So it's going to seem like you're saving money, but also you're extending. Now you've paid 35 years, right? That you're paying your mortgage over 35 years, even with the lower interest rate. So, you have to look at all of those, and that calculator helps you figure that out. All right, good questions. I'll take 5 more, moderator. I'll take 5 more because we're right at about 8 o'clock. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. I'm gonna put that up. I don't have that banner, but please like and subscribe. I appreciate it. All right, so Carolyn's number one. Is it possible to keep your FHA fixed rate if you refinance? No, unless it's the same rate for some reason. So when you refinance, you are essentially paying off your current mortgage and replacing it with a new mortgage. That's why for a lot of you that bought during the pandemic, it's not going to make sense for you to refinance. Even if interest rates fall to 5.5%, if you have a 3%, it's not going to make sense to go up 2 points and just so you can refinance. Even if you're getting rid of your mortgage insurance, it doesn't make sense. So for a lot of you that have these lower 2%, 3% interest rates, refinancing doesn't make sense. It's going to make sense for people that, got the 7% interest rates, the 8% interest rates, some higher sixes. It'll make sense. But for a lot of you that bought during that pandemic time at 3%, 2%, 4%, it's not going to make sense for a long time, if ever. So be mindful of that. Question number one. But in that video, the 6 times it makes sense, for example, say you're getting a divorce and the court makes you refinance. You might have to go from your 3% to a 6% because you have to get your spouse off the loan. So things like that, you may have to go from a lower to a higher, but unless it's something like that, you typically don't want to refinance from a lower interest rate to a higher interest rate. Doesn't make sense. Can you explain why mortgage payments may increase after the first year? Yes, and I've done at least 2 videos on this. It's primarily because of taxes and insurance, okay? So watch the video. It's basically me looking like sad, and I say, why has I can't afford my mortgage payment anymore. And I kind of explain those. So your taxes can go up, especially if they were estimated and they were on the lower end of the estimation. So they can go up. And if a lot of people are escrowing, they're paying their taxes and their insurance with their mortgage payment, their principal and interest. So your taxes can go up. A lot of times they go up for new construction as well, because sometimes when you're doing new construction, they just estimate it on the land because that's what the builder paid because the house wasn't ready yet. So, but when they have a completed house, now the tax assessor says, oh, the taxes are this. So the builder might have been paying $700 on the land, but you're going to pay $4,000 on the completed house. So you have to, when you look at your loan estimate, if it seems really low, you need to bring that to the attention. You need to think about that, right? And discuss it with your lender. The other thing is that, the home value over time may go up. Usually it doesn't go up that quickly. During the pandemic, it did, but typically it doesn't. So when values go up, your taxes will go up as well, because taxes in most places are a percentage of the value of your home. And then homeowners insurance may go up as well as rates go up, costs are higher to replace homes, that sort of thing. So those are the main things that would cause your payment to go up, your total payment, because a lot of people are paying their taxes and their insurance with their mortgage. And then the other one is if you don't have a fixed rate. If you have a fixed rate, your principal and interest will not change. But if you do like a 3-year ARM, a 5-year ARM, an adjustable rate mortgage, then it can go up. All right, Diane, can you share your thoughts on new construction homes with the 5.99 fixed rate and the almost 15 to 20K closing costs paid by the builder? It seems too good to be true. They're legitimate. They're doing this. Most builders are doing it to incentivize, of course, most people to buy homes, right? Because, they know that people aren't buying because interest rates are high. So they're basically buying down your rate and giving you a lower interest rate. And then they're, increasing your closing costs. So you can, you'll have less money to bring the closing, because what they're not doing is lowering prices. They want to be able to keep the prices higher, because when interest rates go down naturally, they still want to be able to reduce their incentives, but sell those homes at the higher price. When the last thing builders typically want to do is reduce pricing. They would rather offer you incentives or offer you a lower interest rate, than to reduce a price, because once you start reducing prices, the appraisal of those homes will be worth less. So, you know, if they started selling homes at 500,000, you know, they're still going on paper, and for the appraiser, they're going to say, okay, these homes are selling at 500,000, 525, 530. They're not going to see necessarily the interest rate and, you know, that sort of thing. So they rather keep the price higher than, because, you know, on the other hand, they can say, oh, we'll just reduce prices. But it makes more sense for them to keep those appraised values higher, just to give you more incentives versus lowering prices. So they're legitimate. Like the things that they're offering you are legitimate, and they're fixed rates, again, to incentivize you to purchase the house at the higher price. Thank you for the super chat, Miss Phoenix. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. All right, that was question number 3, I believe. And 2 more. If there are 2 more, if not, we can just go. Okay, I'll wait really quickly to see if there's anything else. But thank you, Miss Phoenix. I just want to put this one up really quickly. Marion said, just purchased a house and they didn't disclose or repair major issues that they put a Band-Aid on. In court now, shaking my head. So be mindful of this. I know we're doing inspections, but I'm telling you, I get emails all the time. Oh, this happened after closing. That happened after closing. I got through. And so part of my masterclass is, you know, based on emails and, you know, comments that I get like this. Okay, what could they have done up front to try to avoid this? So I try to put as much of those things, nothing's 100%, but I try to put more of those things in for you guys that would prompt you to say, well, I should have looked at this. I should have, you know, the seller did the repair, but I didn't have anybody check the seller's repair. Different things, you know, I'm prompting you to ask those things that you may not think to ask about. All right, we're going to end. Okay, no, hold on. Okay, great. Penny says, I purchased your book. Thank you. And it's helping me with working with my agent and lender, but most importantly, helping me understand the steps. I'm not as nervous as I thought I would be. Thank you, Penny, for the purchase. Thank you for, you know, giving me some feedback. I really appreciate it. And then those of you that purchased it, you know, y'all can email me, not a whole bunch of questions, but on support. If you have any questions about the content, you could email me. But yeah, thank you so much for your purchase. I appreciate it. But I'm going to end on that note. So get the masterclass. Join me next Thursday. And then I'll have videos coming out next week on refinancing, buying a house with student loans, and why FHA loans are not for first-time home buyers. Anybody can do an FHA loan. Those are my 3 videos coming up next. Y'all have a good night.